Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
If you are somebody struggling a little bit or a lot with life, moving it forward, dealing with just stuff that comes up every day, maybe you've got anxiety, maybe you've got depression, pretty good chance that it is connected to a trauma in your life. And you may be aware of that trauma, you might not be. And when we say the word trauma, we're not necessarily talking about something majorly catastrophic like a car accident or abuse and things like that. Traumas can manifest in very smaller ways. You might not even know. We're going to talk with somebody that can help us work through that. And she's the person, the CEO and founder of a great organization called Healing Hearts, Healing Minds. And their mission is to teach and empower individuals to move forward with all of these things. And she's back with us. Beatriz Cymberknopf joins us. Did I say your name correctly?
Absolutely, yes.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me back. Thank you so much.
Wonderful to have you here because this is such an important thing that we're talking about that I would have to honestly say, and I'm going to be very transparent about this, that if I were to think of it, 75% of the people in my life deal with anxiety of some sort, maybe more. It's probably 85. In some way, shape, or form. Some of it is pretty substantial. Others, it's not so much. But I don't think I am an anomaly. I think that's normal that people are connected to other people, or maybe yourself dealing with anxiety that is connected to some type of trauma. Now, we talked about traumas last time we got together. Before we continue on the work that can be done to help people with this, can you define traumas again, just to get us back on the page?
Of course, of course. So trauma could be conceptualized or thought of as an event that that occurred throughout a person's life at any given point in the past that continues to activate or trigger the individual in the present moment. So the trauma, whatever that event may have been, whether it's quote unquote ordinary, or something that we all go through it at a certain time, or whether it's a severe, could be the loss of a loved one, which in and of itself is a huge topic, or any other type of severe of trauma that we associated with, continues to repercute and has consequences in the way in which the individual now interprets his or her reality and makes decisions. So the concept of their own self is then disrupted or distorted, and the person now has a difficulty or challenging making a decisions that are separate from the trauma. So you include the trauma in it, and therefore your decisions may not be as sound or wise as can be in terms of evolving, moving forward, and accomplishing what you wish to accomplish in life. That, to give an example. So that.
Yeah, it's from what I'm getting from you, it can almost be paralyzing when you're dealing with anxiety connected to a trauma where you just can't even move forward, can't even make a decision. You're afraid to do anything at that point.
That can be one of the ways in which anxiety manifests. Exactly, that can be one of the ways. So it's either we get into the fight and flight kind of, or we get paralyzed. So it can be any number of reactions. Correct.
Is all or most anxiety typically connected to some type of event, also known as a trauma?
Most of the time, yes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Anxiety and stress come in so many different shapes and forms. So anxiety is a state of mind in which you are concerned about the future, or what the future and the future outcome might be, and you're anxious about that future. And you could be anxious about the future based on a trauma that happened to you in the past. So certainly that's
Sure.
that is a fact. But you can have anxiety passed on to you based on the information that your subconscious or unconscious has accrued and accumulated over the course of your lifetime, and what has been handed out to us, so to speak, through our ancestors, through the collective mind, as we as humans, as species, and so on and so forth. So it has many, many different layers to it, and one on top of the other. So it can get complicated. And when you mention so honestly that you think, you gave it a percentage of 75, 85%, yes, most of us have anxiety. The question is whether one is going to be honest enough with oneself to acknowledge, admit, and then be willing or ready to do whatever personal work is necessary to bring it up and bring it to the light, from the unconscious to the light, so that you can feel your feelings, process your feelings, and go beyond it, and transmute it, transform it, and then heal it, which is the work actually that we're all about, is helping and educating and serving as kind of the mirror to the individual, meeting them where they are, in terms of trying to help them identify for themselves what is stopping them, or what is holding them back, what are the fears, or what are the unconscious information that's been lurking behind, that interferes with them being and maximizing their own potentials in life.
I've often heard, well, actually, I'm going to say that it was about 3 years ago, met somebody who said to me, "Why don't you ever live in the present?" And I said, I don't know what you're talking about." I said, you always think about the past, the future. Why don't you live now? And it took me a few days to process that. And when I did, it was like, oh, okay. And then I realized that if you live in the past or think about the past, you're going to have depression potentially. If you're thinking about the future, you're going to have anxiety because you're anticipating what's coming up. Most times, and I knew this years ago, I think it's like 93%, and they do this research all the time. 93% of the things that we worry about don't even happen. We're just wasting our time. So live now and live easier. Does that sound reasonable?
Very reasonable. The difficulty is that it's, as they say in the cliche, it's easier said than done.
Absolutely.
We have a monkey mind, and our minds can be cruel to us, and it jumps, and it continuously jumps from one thing to another, and it creates scenarios that are not in our best interest. Something there, but so we have to constantly be on the alert, catch ourselves, see the quality of our thoughts, what the quality of our thoughts are, what we're thinking, and then re-entrain. And this is where the tools come in, and the techniques, or the self-care strategies that a person can learn for themselves, that can serve them well for the rest of their life. So whenever there is an incident that happened, it doesn't have to translate into a future, or your mind doesn't have to go to scenarios that are not real. There's like a million variables of things that can happen, and we create scenarios that are not real, or that can be false. So that works against us. So the tools that a person can learn are so wide, and somebody would be very wise to tap into that, such as meditation, and we can talk about forever about that, to the way of learning how to get to the essence of who they are, and to get to understand where it's coming from, and how they can re-entrain their mind to think in the present. Again, we have to entrain our mind to be in the present, to completely adjust one way or another. We have to be very vigilant, and we have to do so on a daily basis. It's not work that you've done it, and you think you've overcome it, and that's it. You've done your work. It's work that has to be done on a regular basis, and that's kind of one of the greatest myths of doing personal work. In fact, because I have many clients that will ask me, okay, if we do a couple of sessions or whatever they think they need, will all my problems go away? Are they going to, that's already, that premise, it's already very flawed right there. So it comes with a lot of education to understand that this is not a one-time only. You learn the tools that can help you address whatever issues come up and present themselves in the present time, and you can go through it and learn how to address it so as not to deny it and rationalize it and blame and put other things and not address it, because they only grow stronger as time goes by. So it's not me healing you, it's the individual healing themselves and placing them in an environment and learning the tools that's going to allow them to rise above it and become stronger for it.
Let's talk about that. So obviously somebody can work with you, your organization, to help heal. If somebody wanted to do the work or maybe even start the work on their own, can you share some of the tools that can help move them forward in dealing with the trauma?
Yes, that's an excellent question. Now, theoretically, everybody can learn the tools and do it for themselves. But one thing is the theory, and one thing is on a practical level. And so it takes an individual to be aware. Their awareness have to already be at a certain threshold, and be a person that, let's say, innately learns, whether it's via books or via audios or experts or whatever methodology they find or resources out there, and there are plenty, or they go to someone to learn the tools, then they are more equipped and in their understanding that they can do it for themselves. But many times, even those individuals who are aware enough, advanced enough to have been already on the journey, so to speak, of healing, in the healing journey, sometimes you need another individual to help you identify what you cannot identify for yourself. And this is where coming to somebody like myself or any other holistic practitioner dealing with trauma can be extremely helpful, because we have something called our ego, which is part of our mind, and the ego likes to where it doesn't like to encompass everything. It likes to delegate those things that it doesn't like to hear, that it doesn't like to see about itself, and it goes into the unconscious mind. So it's many times, or most of the times, it is rather challenging for someone to identify. You can help if you are a person that has continuously worked on yourself, then you know kind of what to do. And I will give a kind of a technique here that anybody can do by themselves, and that we use, of course, in the practice as well. But it is very helpful to have someone help you identify what information may be lurking in your unconscious that is not allowing you to move forward, or kind of serves to get the person stuck in their own emotions, in their own minds. So you can have both, but it depends on the kind of individual. Now, if you're an individual that you're not used to working by yourself and you don't really read and learn and have that type of mindset to begin with, or personal work, then it's very difficult for an individual like that to do
Sure.
it by themselves.
What you're saying is so impactful too, Beatrice, in that you may have an idea. I call it connecting the dots. So you may
Correct.
look at your life now and connect the dots to something that happened in your childhood and say, well, that's why I'm acting that way. However, you may not see the big picture, all of it. It's somebody like you that brings it up. And I experienced that. My childhood wasn't horrible. My parents got divorced when I was very, very, very young. However, there's things there that I know impact my life now. In addition to, I got bullied, I was the big fat kid, blah, blah, all of that. Um, but I spoke with somebody once and they just pointed a couple things that I didn't see, or I
Correct.
didn't see large
Clearly.
enough. Yes.
Yes.
And it was like, I didn't think about that. And then I had more realization as I thought deeper. It's like, and my dad passed when I was 21. I was like, I never realized it, but I'm just like him. Even in the way I parent my children, even in the same exact things I do. Like last year, I bought my daughter a cat.
Yes.
And since we got 2 cats, I just did. I love animals. But then I
Yes.
thought back, forgot my dad did that for me. So,
Yes.
and I think that I'm bringing this up because what we do now is really a lot of emulation of what we
No
had done
question about it.
or we learned about it. And why do we do that? Because we feel familiar with it. Who wants, to feel uncomfortable about situations?
Correct, correct. So, and many we're not taught. In addition to what you just said, which I agree wholeheartedly, we're not taught to question it. We're not taught how to question it,
Right.
and, and how to go about unraveling.
And it doesn't, yes, good word, unraveling. And it doesn't even have to be so much questioning. It's just looking at it, realizing it, seeing it from a different angle. It's
For
like
what it
watching
is.
TV. I'm
Correct.
watching, the camera shoot here. You're over here shooting, the subject from over here. And it's like you're in a different angle. It's like, oh, I didn't even see it that way. So it is impactful to have somebody help you. Would you say that it's a good idea or can be done for us to try and do the work ourselves initially and see how far we get with that? Or is it your main feeling that you really need somebody there to work with you along the way?
That's a good question. There is no harm in, of course, attempting to do the work by yourself. Not at all. Again, if you're an individual that know exactly, and especially for those individuals who you know what your trauma is and what's happening since then, and how you may or may not be stuck, and you can find the resources to learn the tools that to try to overcome it. And then when you do go to that individual, you'll have a foundation to speak of in terms of what has worked or what not has worked, or where to fill the gaps, or what's missing, or what was, then you can go from there. You can go from there. But it's the person's honesty with themselves of how deeply they wish to do and how committed they are to doing the work. Again, sometimes the individual goes to the other person, to the practitioner, and the burden is, so to speak, put on the practitioner. No, no, no. I'm helping you so you can see it for yourself. You can, like you said, you can connect the dots. And now I'm going to teach you the tools of how you are going to address it, so that I'm not, if you're a good therapist, you really don't want the individual to continue to come into you endlessly. Sorry
Mm,
about that. You want the individual to learn the tools and empower themselves to overcome it and be victorious in
sure.
that, if you're a good therapist. So it's all about teaching the tools and then having them practice, and until they understand how to look at situations and where they are. But that, I don't know.
I totally have it clear. It's my vision of it is it's almost like the nest. You have the mama bird, the baby bird. Mama bird teaches the baby how to do things, how to get food and everything. Then mama says, like it's fly on your own. You're off on your own. Not to say that,
No, I
therapist
understand what you're saying.
or the mama won't be there, but it's like you've got the tools, you've been taught. Let's see if you can do this on your own. Of course, you can come back questions and I totally agree because if you're dealing with anxiety, you may have worked with somebody and you're at a certain point and it seems pretty good, but then you might be at a party or something or anticipating a new job. And then, whoa, now it all starts again. How do we come back to center? How do we deal with that?
Correct,
Move
correct.
forward.
Let's give an example of someone, a very common self-limiting belief that a great number or percentage of the population has.
I know
Okay,
what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm not good enough.
you nailed it. Yes, and that can come in many different forms or for many different reasons. Okay,
For
so
sure.
let's not even get into that. It could be out of many different reasons, but let's say somebody was able to identify on their own that that's one of their thinking. So what you would want to do ideally is come up with, I don't care, 10 or 5 different adjectives or ways to counteract that statement in a way that resonates and it's powerful, impactful for the individual. So you want to create a new belief that is more expansive, that is, of course, supportive of you. So instead of saying, I'm not good enough, it could even be just, I'm good enough. I'm good enough. I'm good enough to speak. I'm good enough to be your partner. I'm good enough as a parent. I'm good enough as a daughter. I'm good enough as your employee. I'm simply good enough. Or you can say, I'm confident. I'm resourceful. I'm smart. I'm competent, and come up with any other ways in which to say that statement that is now going to repetitiveness, because we learn through repetition to insert or reimprint or retrain or reprogram, however you want to say it, the previous self-limiting belief. You want to see yourself. So maybe after you conjure up a statement that resonates with you, I'm good enough, then you want to see yourself in such a way or create an image. We're a very visual people. Yeah, human beings are very visual. To have a visual picture of yourself, of how you see yourself in the way that you wanna
like it could be your job. Could be your
and
job.
that's simple enough.
You want to see yourself succeeding and visualize, I got this. I'm going to ace that job. No worries. I am enough. I think it's
I'm enough.
I am enough. You could even drive in your car and just think or say to yourself alone, I am enough. I am enough. Even say it different ways just to keep pounding the message in there. Because like you said,
but it has to go beyond that, because then you can have something coming from just the ego. So you want to see yourself, you want to imprint an image in your mind, you want to repeat it again and again, and then you want to believe it. You want to believe it. You want to get to have that statement, believe in it. And then what you want to do is find evidence to support that new belief, because the mind, again, like we've spoken, it take us to places that it doesn't want. For whatever, I'm not good enough, for the belief I'm not good enough, the mind tends to find enough supporting belief to recreate that.
I totally have it. It's
You wanna create enough supporting belief to in your mind to come up with many different incidents in which you saw yourself being good enough in whatever scenario you want to take it, and you can even ask friends and family who know you, who appreciate you, who perhaps see things in you that you don't see in yourself from a more objective perspective, how they see you in this regard. And you can add it to your supportive evidence. So now, whenever you want to come back to I'm good enough, you have supporting evidence that the mind can go to, and that serves to kind of train the mind to think in a totally different way and perspective.
It's almost as if you're a salesperson and you have to sell yourself to yourself. And somebody told me that another technique too, and I think it's neuro-linguistics programming.
Yes,
is part of this, but it's where you give a statement. Is it true that Beatriz is a fantastic counselor or coach? Is it true? You always start with that. Is it true that people are going to get something out of this podcast? Yes. Your mind is saying, oh yeah, it is true. It is true. We're out of time. So Beatriz, yeah, actually approaching overtime. How do we connect with your organization? If somebody wants to work with you, maybe they've tried to do the personal work on their own, haven't really nailed it yet. How do we connect with you and start that conversation?
And they certainly can visit my website, and that's healingheartshealingminds.org. They can contact me via the phone 561-599-1201, and they can have a consultation and inquire. We'll be delighted to answer any questions they may have. I want to leave you with a inspirational way in which to think about trauma.
Sure.
Since this is all anxiety connected with trauma, and that is that the paradox of trauma in reality is that it has the capacity to auto-destruct, or has the capacity to completely transform, like the phoenix rising from the ashes. It has both, and we have both within us. And for your listeners who are listening, you are much stronger than you think. You're much stronger than the trauma. And to keep that in their minds and heart as a way of, and that is true. We are stronger than we think.
It's very true. And I'll be honest, again, in my journey, that's what I realized. When you look back, it's like, you actually did that. Wow, you got that done.
Exactly.
Where maybe you'd look back 5 years, whatever, and think that if you went from that point and looked forward, if you were able to see in the future, you would say to yourself, "There's no way I could handle that." And then you look back and like, "Oh, actually, I got that done, and it was all good." But yeah, that is. Thank you for that, because we forget that, and
we do forget that. Yeah,
we do. Yeah, and again, I think it goes right back to what you said, that we feel, most of us, if maybe not all of us in some way, shape, or form, that we're not good enough.
And we are good enough, and much more. Much more. We're very powerful beings, very powerful indeed. And why not do the very worthy work to get us where we want to be? Simple enough.
Yep. So I am enough. We are enough. And thank you for today. Fantastic. The things that we talked about, mostly you talked about, very impactful. And I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for saying.
Thanks, Beatriz. And I look forward next time we get together.
Me too. Me as well. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.